If you're a spiritual entrepreneur and you're dealing with the fear of the unknown in your journey, this episode is right for you. So, here we talked about how to tackle this fear of the unknown and feeling maybe lonely in this journey and the importance of community support and taking action. Listen on. So, Joel, what was it like for you when you first started your business?
It's interesting because being Swedish and almost a decade ago, no one heard about coaching. No one talked about coaching as a profession. We had consultants. That's what you had. You kind of had educators, but coaching was completely unknown back then. And for me, I came from a point where I loved working with people, and I worked as a consultant, but I didn't really like the way of just telling people what to do or just doing it for them. I wanted to have the development and people actually learning skills and going somewhere. So it was kind of scary to step into a new role as a coach when no one knew what that was, at least in Sweden. So that was a weird kind of situation. And I felt like I was standing, like if you're in the forest in the middle of the night and it's pitch black everywhere, and you're standing around the campfire and you have the fire in the middle, and you can see, if you look out into the forest, you can see from the fire kind of the outlines of the trees. And I was kind of like stepping into the pitch black forest, trying to find my way through that. So that was an interesting kind of first step into it. And it's such a weird experience to have, to not know anything about how to do this or why to do this or anything, and just step into it. And it was scary. I think it was very scary. And I think a lot of people find it very scary when we're shifting into something new.
So, what are the some things like tools and support, like when it came to this fear of the unknown and stepping into the darkness? How did you overcome that?
I don't know if you can see how thick this the front of my head is. The amount of, we call it like just pure willpower to bash through everything. I didn't need any help. I knew everything, of course. I had everything figured out. I was going to do everything alone and do it because it was super easy, of course. Launching a business 10 years ago in the online world, super easy. Not hard at all. Everyone knew how to do that. So, so I didn't think about needing any support or anything. And of course,
Mm.
as most stories goes, it was horrible. I failed miserably. That was the starting point. So stepping into that pitch black forest, I kind of really fast lost track of the fire. And when you're in the forest and it's pitch black, you need light, and it took a long time for me to figure that out. And figuratively speaking, I was hungry and very cold from the forest, so to speak. So I needed someone. I needed a new fireplace to step into. But it took a while because I'm a stubborn Swedish guy who thought I could do everything. Um, had I known, of course, what I know now, I would have found a coach, someone to help me. But I didn't at the time, so it was hard to figure that out. But I mean, that's by the end of the day, it's a learning experience as well. It just cost me $35,000, so that was cheap, money well spent, I guess. But an interesting way to explore it, I think. So, how did you guys start? What was your experience with actually getting started with the business?
Yeah, for me, it was also very scary because I used to, so I have a master's degree. I used to be in the corporate world in New York. So, even though it has its own challenges, I had no idea how to be an entrepreneur, how to start a business. And it was a scary time for me in also my personal life because at the time I was raising my son, staying home, right? So, and I ended up deciding to get a divorce. So it was so many unknowns in my life that, the smart thing to do would be just to get a job, right? Because I could. But I remember that my soul was just dying slowly in an office job before, and I just couldn't get myself to do it. So starting out, it was a lot of like overcoming limiting beliefs. It was a lot of like like how to navigate this thing, and I didn't realize I had to do so many different things at the same time, right? I decided to be a coach. I thought I was just going to coach, And then I was like, oh, I have to do that and that and that too. So it was just like this acceptance and change of identity, almost, to like step forward and step into a new person, as a coach, as a business owner, and as a professional who is, her own boss. And I didn't have anyone to tell me what to do. I had to figure out what to do. So it's a very similar situation. But I started out, in the United States, and about 4 years ago. So I was lucky actually to have a personal coach. I was then lucky to also hire a business coach. So one of the things that really resonated with me, one of these analogies that I learned from the coaching world, when I was studying NLP, was that, when you're driving a car in the dark, you know, pitch black, like you said, but let's say we're driving, right? And you have the lights on, so you can see the next, let's say, a few feet in front of you.
Yeah.
And you don't stop, right? You just keep driving. You just trust that the road keeps going,
Yeah.
right? So that was my thinking and believing, and, that it's just gonna, I don't have to know it all to do it. I just need to know my next step, and once I'm there, the next one will show. So it was a lot of like trust within myself and trust in the universe that I'm supported and divinely guided, and just listening to my intuition, and like you said, making mistakes, failing.
Yeah.
And I want to reframe that failure part, right? Just initiations, going through those initiations and getting to know myself. And I think for me, business development was a lot of self development, right? It was a beautiful mirror into myself. What are my fears, right? And I had a big fear of being seen, and I kind of like was able to bury it under a rug before I started the journey. And then I'm like, okay, I need to do a live, and it's like, oh, I can't do it. Why can't I do it, right? And I had to dig deep and, like you said, shed the light into those shadow parts
Yeah.
that I've been kind of hiding and not integrating. So yeah, here we are. It works.
Awesome. So I was actually born into an entrepreneurial family. I think I only saw my dad work for somebody else for a couple of years of my life, and once was after I was an adult and grown. Um, so being an entrepreneur to me just kind of came naturally. I started my first business. Let's see. Well, actually, so I was an exotic dancer, and I that was really my first entrepreneurial experience, because when you're a dancer, you're not hired. You pay them to work at their facility. Then I got my cosmetology license, right? Put myself through beauty school dancing. It's a common thing, but it's that as a cosmetologist, a hairstylist, you're also often an entrepreneur because you typically rent space. You're not an employee. I was an employee and I rented space. So it was never a big shift for me. It was just kind of this natural progression that I just stepped into it. And it was so normal because my parents owned businesses and that's what I grew up with. So there was no big real shift. However, my first business that I tried to own, I opened a coffee shop literally 9 months pregnant. Like, bought the shop, got it all going, had the baby, and my idea was, oh, I'll just wear her on my back and I'll work in the coffee shop. Well, we opened when she was 4 months old, and when I was inside training, I realized she could grab hot things from my back. This was not going to work. I was going to need to hire employees. Everything went downhill from there. Actually, that's not true. What started was, I know we had a really good idea because there was no other coffee shops on the corner that our coffee shop was on until the day after we signed the lease, this amazing sign, kitty corner, from us with this giant round hole in the middle showed up. And I went, no. And 2 weeks later, the green Starbucks circle appeared. Kitty corner from this little mom and pop coffee place that really never had a shot. So that was super frustrating, right? And then that kind of evolved, and I tried to keep that going. It did not work. Starbucks beat us out. We ended up selling that for a massive loss. Then I was just mom for a long time. I was an at-home mom, kind of, working stuff on the sides, doing little things, co-ops, really taking steps in an entrepreneurial way to save money. So doing co-ops and getting other moms together and running all of these things still in that sense, but not actually running a business then. Then, after my kids got ready and were in school, I finally could go back to school, and I started encapsulating placentas for moms. So it's turning their placenta into medicine using traditional Chinese methods. And it was great, but it wasn't right. It was like, that was the one business that was really going and it was taking off, and it just was out of alignment for me. I was only able to help people in this tiny little way, and I had some other tools. So during that, I had a personal crisis. My dad died, and it sent me into this horrible depression where I found Reiki, and that started to bring me back up. And then I found hypnotherapy, and I was doing these modalities for my own sanity and my own depression and my own survival. And along the way, I was like, oh, this is why I'm here. I'm here to really help people in this deep, deep way. So then turning that into a business, right? Then it's like, oh, how do I actually make something profitable that's not coffee, that's not a tangible product? So for me, I think everything my parents did, they owned a bar and grill, they had a taxi cab company, like the things that they did were tangible, things people needed. And I didn't know how to make this intangible thing that I could give to sell it in a tangible way. So that was where my biggest struggle came in. And then all of the efforts, I was lucky to find a business coach right away, invested in the coach. Her way didn't work. And she was very one single way. There was no alternate ways. It was like, this is the plan and this is the way that you do it. You follow my way. And when it failed, it was, oh, well, you didn't do it right. And what I've come to find out is there's lots of different ways to run a business, right? There's so many different ways that you can do it. And finding the ways that align with you, that make it easy, that fit your personality, then your business can take off. Because now you're not you're not in your own way. If you're trying to do something the way someone else did it and you're not being authentic to who you are, it's probably not going to work out so well. So for me, really finding authenticity in all of who I am, and then aiming that toward the business that feels right on all levels, that's, I think, how you really find success. And that was my big struggle, was finding full alignment in what was right.
I think it's an interesting thing because we talk a lot about, at least in my bubble of the world, we talk about alignment and we talk about why we're here. But a lot of the time we tend to forget something that I think is incredibly important talking about, that if I want to get big muscles in my arms, I need to lift weights with my arms. I can't do squats to get strong. And I can my legs, of course, but most of the time, there's a method to a madness.
Yes.
And I think this is where I was lost for a long time. It's like, yeah, I want to do this, and this is how I imagine it's going to happen. And not having the idea, not having a process around it, just kind of winging it. To me, that is such a waste of my time and energy. I don't know if you noticed, but I've noticed I'm getting older.
I've noticed.
Older, more pretty and wiser as I age, like fine wine, obviously. But time passes, right? I think it's an important aspect to remember. We want to do these things. We want to support people. We want to help. But a lot of the time I talk to people, they don't have a method to it. So they want to help, but they don't have anyone to help. And to me, this is a sad situation where you really feel in your entire body, your entire soul, that I'm here to help, and you have no one to help. I think that is a big part of the unknown here, because I'm assuming, if you're listening to this, that you actually want to help someone, that you actually want to do good for people, and having that situation where you have no one to help. To me, like that's the definition of a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. I've been there. It's totally
a nightmare. That coin is like, you're here, you want to help people, you don't have anyone to help, but there's all these people who need your help. Right? They're there. It's not like they don't exist. Right? That's the thing. they're there, they're looking for you. And I always say that the thing that you're looking for is looking for you. But how do you bridge that gap, right? And like you said, it comes with alignment, it comes with authenticity, and most of the most importantly, it comes with strategy. Like you need to know, like you said, you need to lift weights with your arm if you want to have muscles in your arm,
Yeah.
right? So much noise outside, and I feel like sometimes, like Kessler said, you get a coach and it's like you have to do it this way, this way, this way, and there's only one way and that's it. And if it doesn't work, then what, right? Then
Yeah.
you feel lost. Or you listen to 1,000 people at the same time and you're like, oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you're all over the place. It's madness. And you still don't bridge the gap between who you are, what is your purpose, who, the people you want to help, and the people who are looking for you to help them.
And I mean, if I look back at when I started, I had no, like, of course there was books, of course there were people who knew, but back then, at least for me, it wasn't common. You didn't ask, or you could maybe go to the university and learn something. And I think a lot of a huge shift over this decade is, at least for me, there's no need for 4 years in the university to do stuff.
Mm-mm.
I can learn a skill and I can help someone tomorrow using that skill.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a different world to live in. If I think about my parents, they had to, if they wanted to achieve something bigger, they had to go to school. School was so important. And nowadays, of course, the skill is important. But if I get really good at one skill and I can fix something for someone who's actively looking to get that fixed, I'm set. I can do that. So really, I think it's interesting the amount of information we have access to.
Mhm.
It's never been like available to that degree that it is right now, and people are more lost than ever, I feel.
Too much free information, too
Yeah,
much good information.
you have so much. You can learn, you can read, you can, I mean, YouTube, 4 hours watching cow hoofs getting trimmed. I've
Yeah,
been there. So there's so much information. The issue for me is like, all right, what's the process here? How do I actually deal with this? How do I turn this into something
right.
so I can actually do something with it? I I must tell you this. I have an old friend of mine. When I went to the university, I worked at one of the local faculties. I don't know how you say that in English, actually. One of the student associations. We had a big house and partied, and all of these fraternities. Is that's the name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I worked for one of those, and we had one guy. He was almost. I was 22 something, and he was over 50, and he started studying when he was in his 20s, and he just never stopped. He just continued. Because in Sweden, you go to the university, it's free.
Oh, and he
It's
just
part,
stayed at
yeah.
university.
He just stayed, and you get paid to go to the university in Sweden. So he just stayed.
So he's a
He
professional student.
he never graduated anything. He just stuck around,
Okay.
and he had so much skills, I assume, but he never did anything with it. And I think that's, to me, is the biggest thing. Do something, help someone. And you said it really well, Olivia. Looking at the headlights, you might see 50 feet in front of you and you have no idea what's out there, but do something. Help someone. Do something. Get some momentum. Do something with it. And kind of embrace the journey of stepping into something else. I think, to me, that is an important part of this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the downsides of this information overload, is that like we spend all of our time like getting information, and then when you, like you said, when you don't use it, I mean, there's a saying in Turkish, I don't know how to translate it, but if you don't use something, it gets rusted, right? Like
Yeah.
if you, like, it doesn't matter how much information you absorb, if you don't put it into practice, first of all, it gets lost, right?
Yeah.
Just by listening to something for 4 hours every day, podcast. That's why not a lot of people are successful. Yes, you can learn a lot of things on YouTube or podcast, blah blah. But where is the embodiment, right?
Yeah.
Where is the action? So
Yeah.
if you are hearing things with your ears and it goes to your brain, it goes through your brain,
Yeah.
unless you bring the action and the embodiment, right? Unless you be it. So I think that's one of the biggest gaps as well.
Definitely. And this doing part, I feel like we forgot about it. As you say, it's so much information. We're consuming. We are consumers all the time. We're not creators. And someone listening now are consuming this. You shouldn't say this, but turn this off and go do something. Like literally, that's the thing. Finish the episode, but do something. And not knowing what to do, to me, is not an excuse. It's your responsibility to actually take a action today. And
Can
if
I
you have
bring
no idea, then read a book or talk to someone. But if you're looking to actually help people and you're looking to do that in a business setting, then you have to take some type of action.
So there's
Right.
another side to the action though. What if you're just taking action and that's actually keeping you stuck
Yeah.
because you're not taking the right action, but you're taking action and therefore you've justified it to yourself that you're doing everything you can do. You're taking the action. Why isn't anything happening? Because you're not taking the right action at the right way at the right time, and maybe it's not in alignment.
One of my mentors said something, and I think this is spot on. Actually, he said, if you have 100 clients or 100 people looking to get help, chances are 80% of them have no idea what they're doing. They're just doing stuff for the sake of doing it. The remaining 20 might do the right thing, but in the wrong order.
Yeah.
And it might sound harsh, but he said it with a big heart. But I think that's true, and I know I did exactly that. Taking action for the sake of taking action. I spent 15 hours a day working, not seeing the kids, getting super tired, coming back home and being super tired. Like, I've been busy.
Yeah.
Ooh,
What did you do?
I have no idea. Just moving
Busy.
stuff.
Yeah, it's a busy work that consumes us, and it's like there's no result.
No.
So I think when it comes to action, it's like you need to know like what result, like you need to reverse engineer it almost.
Yeah.
Like, what result do I want to create?
Yeah.
And then come, like reverse engineer it, and like, okay, what is the first step I need to take to get myself closer to that, like just a little bit today. And I kind of want to like give this tool of like called habit stacking, right? So if you're listening to this episode right now, we're gonna habit stack, right? So you can say, when I listen to this episode, I go and take action. I do one thing that's gonna get me closer to my goals. That's gonna create a result. So let's have a commitment to ourselves, right? After this episode, if you're listening, when you're done, go take action. Go take aligned action that's gonna get you closer to your result.
Yeah. And I think we have to. This could be an entire episode, and I think it's going to be an episode eventually. But one of the things we kind of have to do, because all of us have these habits. We do stuff for whatever reason. And one of the things that I've noticed for myself is I'm only going to do it if I get an immediate like reward for it. Otherwise, I have a hard time looking past that and doing the things that needs to be done. If I don't do this like on purpose, mindfully doing for the sake of actually creating something bigger. So not just looking at habits, but looking at identities. Who am I? As an athlete, I know I need to work out. So that's why I go and work out. Not because I have to go work out, but as a professional athlete, I do that because that's part of my identity. So I love the fact you're saying habits, like put that trigger, listen to an episode, and then do something, and do that every time. It's such an amazing way to get started with it. And it's okay, really. It's okay that you have no idea where that action takes you. But I think taking the action and then kind of calibrating over time, where am I heading? I think it's an important piece. An even more important piece is actually looking at it before we take the action, or taking the action of deciding where am I heading? Mm-hmm. What's my actual goal? Why am I doing this? Coming back to the aspect of time, we don't have enough time, or we have a finite amount of time. So what am I doing this? What's the outcome? Why do I want to do this?
Yeah, it's like if you're going to go somewhere, you've got to know where you're going. If I'm going to go to Costco, I got to know which Costco I'm going to before I go get in the car. Because
Yeah,
if I go out, get in the car, put my seatbelt on, start the car, and start driving, and I don't know where I'm going,
yeah,
sure, I'm driving,
yeah,
but
Yeah.
I might end up at the wrong store.
yeah,
The navigation can take you anywhere and everywhere, but it needs you. You know, you need to type in the address of
Right.
where you want to go before you
yeah,
hit
Tell it where
start.
you go. And you need to know where
So
you are. You need to know where you are, right? Otherwise, how can the map get you to the place you're trying to go?
yeah,
It can't. So you have to know where you are and where you're going, and then you can see the path to get there. Yeah.
yeah.
Then you can decide the journey that you're going to take to actually make that trek and get there successfully.
And I think we have to decide this. People sometimes say, I'll decide on that and I'll work on this, or I'll set a goal. I just need to finish what I'm doing first because I'm too busy to do that. And I think we need to do it now. I don't care if you're busy, because you're busy because you haven't set a goal.
Yeah.
To give you an example of this, I was out taking a walk today. Most of my days now coming up on New Year's is focused on my vision for the next couple of years, what I'm doing, how I'm doing, what's important. Meaning that writing with this regular pen on a regular piece of paper is an important aspect. So that's what I'm doing today. And that
Yeah.
doesn't feel like work. That's not busy work. I'm not doing anything productive. But of course I am. I am literally doing the most productive thing. But
Yeah.
it doesn't, it's not heavy. Like I'm not have to lift this. I don't have to dig. I don't have to throw stuff. I don't have to carry something. So it's not work in my mind.
Got it.
But
also when
without the intention of knowing where I'm going, how do I know where to dig? So actually put in the time in your calendar down to yourself, saying, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to work on where I'm actually going. And that can be super easy. It could be one word. It could be 5 pages. It could be whatever you want, but decide on something.
yeah, one of my mentors, he said, don't work hard, think harder.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what you're doing when we are thinking and writing and creating that like clarity.
Yeah.
That's how you get out of that, you know, overthinking and like just busy work and all that. So when you sit down and write down, especially like you said, it helps with like what these things keep us awake at night,
Yeah.
right? Because it's in your mind, it's in your body. So like you said, when you create space for yourself to sit down and write it down and to think hard, right,
Yeah.
then it's going to create so much space. And by doing this for yourself, you're actually practicing holding space for the people you want to help. Because if you don't know how to hold space for yourself, how are you going to hold space for other people?
Yeah.
Right? So there's so much into that sitting down and writing it down. I can go like, that can be a whole episode for me. But yeah, I love that. I love that.
And then you are looking at also when you're on pen to paper, you're crossing your midline. So there's a lot going on in your brain that's happening. That planning in that way, a pen to paper versus typing or
Yeah.
something like that, is actually, healing and getting your brain in a different direction. So you're tapping into different parts of your brain, kind of accessing both the left and the right hemispheres.
And to me, I don't know if it's a phase that I'm going through, but really, it strikes me all the time. My wife shared a picture of a memory on Facebook, which was 11 or 10 years ago today. I was in the house we used to live in the kitchen, with my oldest son, and we were making some type of bun. I don't know what we were doing, but and he was sitting in my lap. He's 10 now. So I look in the mirror every day and I realize that if I want to do the things that I dreamt about my entire life, I need to do them. And it's okay for me not knowing every detail of the journey that I need to take, but I need to know where I'm heading. And part of us I think don't step into that uncertainty because we're afraid. We're afraid of what happens if I reach the goal, what happens if I don't, what are other people going to say.
Big
These are
time.
completely irrelevant questions, really, but we make them fairly big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And,
because the fear of judgment and rejection and non belonging
yeah,
is very real,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I spent 5, maybe 8, maybe 10 years, as you said, Olivia, or some of you, one of you said, not wanting to be seen. I
Mhm.
spent the time like running next to the walls so people wouldn't see me, because that was a big like fear I had. I didn't want to be seen because what would people say?
Mhm.
I don't care what people say. I realize every day as I'm working and as I'm on social media, if I'm on LinkedIn or wherever I am, the amount of people that exist in the world. I think it's those 8 people that I talk to and that ninth person that really hates me because I cut them off on the motorway or whatever happened. Like, I think that's the world, and it's not. So I kind of create my own cage around that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
have to kind of expand bigger than that. But then we have to know, why am I doing this? To me, it's really such an important piece in this, and not be
Yeah.
afraid.
Right, because it feels scary. Like Olivia
Yeah,
said, it feels like we're going to be abandoned, and we need connection and belonging. It's a very basic human need.
yeah,
So if we're afraid that someone isn't going to like us if we are showing up as ourselves, wow, is that a hard place to be? Because you're like, wait, I want to be, but I can't, and I can't. And it goes back to one of my favorite sayings: other people's opinions of you is none of your business.
yeah,
It's none of your business. Who cares what other people think about you?
yeah,
They're going to think. And guess what? It's not even about you, it's about them. Because when we're thinking about them, is it about them? No, it's about us.
yeah, yeah,
Right? So it's the same thing. It's really not about us. And it's none of our business what other people are thinking. Now, that's easy to say for the outside world and all those sea of people we can't see, those 7 billion we don't know. But what about those closest to us?
yeah,
What are they going to say?
yeah,
What are our families going to say? What are our friends going to say?
yeah,
Right? That's, I think, another, the other side of that fear is, am I going to be okay with the people that I love the most if I do this?
yeah,
Or what if I do it and I fail?
yeah,
What if I take this leap and I can't be successful? And now I have to save face and go smote back and say, you were right, I failed and I shouldn't have tried. Like, there's so much fear going into being an entrepreneur. So much. But you can get rid of it all. You can
And
help
I
it.
also think one really important piece here, and this was something I realized maybe a couple of months back, but this is to me a really big thing. We are brought up by our parents, most of us, that have no idea how anything works and is just trying to navigate the world as best they can. I'm guilty of this myself, of course, but they're trying to do the best they can, and we believe that they know best because they're our parents, right?
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, how important is it to actually find people who understand where you're trying to go, instead of listening to the people who have no idea where you want to go, but just want to keep you where you are because that's a safe place? No, don't do that. Stay. You have a great job. Keep doing that. It's going to be awesome. And then you turn 78 years old and you've never realized the dream you really wanted to do. You never followed that. You never did that because it was safe.
Yeah. That's
Talking to
torture.
my father, he says the same. He says, I should have done that. I should have followed that. And he is old now, and that time has passed. So he's never going to do the things he really wanted to do. And he gave up on so much because it was safe.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest fear anyone should have, that
Yeah.
if you don't do anything, you're never going to realize any of the dreams. And the dreams you have is absolutely doable. You
Yeah.
can reach them. To me, that's the crazy piece. People think they can't because someone who had no idea how to reach their own dreams told them so.
Right. Yeah, but it'd be like, like if a rocket person who builds rockets
Yeah,
is trying to hold you back from, being a business coach or
yeah,
being a, any kind of coach. Like, of course you're going to think it's wrong and scary. You have no idea what I'm doing. So let's not use your expertise. Like, right, we're not going to take a rocket scientist and put them in the kitchen and ask them to bake a cake. Like, maybe they could do it, maybe they can't.
Yeah.
but it's very different skills. So you would not get, or I guess a rocket scientist wouldn't go to a chef for advice on how to build a rocket, right? They'd be like, "That's a stupid idea. Bake a cake,"
Yeah.
because yeah, like you said, it's safe, so it keeps
Yeah, never
them.
take advice from people unless they are where you want to go, right? Even if
Good
they're your
point.
parents. And one of the biggest, you said one of the biggest fears, and I was like, one of my biggest fear is to be 80 or whatever, like at the end of my life and looking back, those videos on Instagram or YouTube, they're like, what is your biggest regret? And people are like, oh, like, not taking more risks, not
Yeah.
traveling more, or like not pursuing my dreams. So
Yeah.
you're never gonna regret taking risks. You're never gonna regret trying and like, finding the people who are on the same path as you, finding support and taking action and taking risk. And you're gonna regret not doing it. Like we all want to stay safe and the same, but that creates the biggest regrets at the end of anybody's life.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
so yeah.
And we have this idea. I've started 6 or 7 businesses. I founded, and
Mhm.
and some of them worked really well. Some of them did not. And what I've learned, one of the biggest things I've learned from them is most of us early in our journey is we're so afraid not to have enough money or to lose a lot of money. And this is also something we can easily say and we can understand it, but it's a completely different thing when you have either have it or you don't have the money. But it's you can always, there's no, like, there's enough money in the world, but you don't have enough time. And as soon as the faster you can realize that that's the case, that money is never an issue, time is. The faster we can realize that, the easier it's going to be to get us to where we want to go. I'm not saying, like, for you in this second you have $1 million. I'm not saying that's the case, but you have resources if you're resourceful, and you can easily get access to working capital and money. That is not the problem, but you're running out of time. So how do we decrease the time spent to get to where we want to go?
Get the right people to
Yeah.
guide you. Just like if you're climbing to the top of Mount, Kilimanjaro, or wherever you've got to go,
Yeah.
you need a Sherpa. You need someone to guide you that has been there, that has done it, that knows where the really bad torrential holes are and where this ledge is. And
Yeah.
you need someone that's made some of that trek that can say, okay, hey, watch here. Hey, this gets really hairy. Hey, you're going to need this thing here.
Yeah.
And it also, I think, helps. Olivia mentioned community, right? It's not just make sure that you're taking advice from somebody who's where you want to go, but that you have the right people around you.
Yeah.
Because if you're surrounded by people who are scared of growth and don't take risks and think entrepreneurialism is crazy and they're so secure in their miserable job and they'd rather have that 401k and that consistent energy than be happy, and they're like, I'm fine going to work. You need to have people around you that get it. You need
Yeah.
those people to see that they're going where you want to go. Not necessarily that they're there, but that they want to get there. It will help fuel you
Yeah.
to have that kind of support. Before I had entrepreneurial friends, everybody was like, nobody got me.
Yeah.
And you just feel like this black sheep and you don't have support and you're the weird one and it's not fun. So getting other people, then they'll support you, they'll encourage you, they'll build you up. And when you fail, because we all do, it's how we learn, right? When we have those initiations, as Olivia said in the beginning, we'll get celebrated for the initiations and supported for those initiations. And then you get back on the right track, right? If you fall down, you still need a little instruction to keep going. And so you get the support and the instruction and all of that when you have a community and a mentor that you're going after in our same trajectory.
Absolutely. Yeah. My parents are both like work for the government, right? Had very secure jobs. And one of the reasons I moved out of the country is because I didn't know any people who are, like who had big visions and big dreams. Literally, I felt suffocated in a whole country. Like
Yeah.
I knew early on that I need to get out of there and expose myself, right, to the world and to different types of people. So when I went to New York, I was standing in the middle of Times Square, and I closed my eyes and I could feel like the energy of all these different people. I felt like I was in the center of the world and I could reach anybody anywhere, and I can actually like take a deep breath finally and like have space to like expand. Right. So that was such a big feeling and identity shift and initiation for me. And I talk about this like we are all like flowers. I have a little story, but the point of it is that like you need to know who you are, like what kind of flower you are, like and then sometimes you need to change your soil. Like sometimes your environment is wrong, the people around you, you're in the wrong garden with the wrong, with all the cactuses in there, and you just need to be planted in a different garden. So getting to know yourself, who you are, what kind of environment you need, what kind of people you need around you, what kind of support you need, right? And that's like such a big, important part of your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Like you need to know yourself. And I think this is overlooked because we want to jump, we want to start doing the busy work and try to get somewhere, and we're just, then you're stuck.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and if you feel stuck, if you feel like you've been just doing this busy work and not getting any results, like just take a step back. Sometimes we need to slow down to speed up,
Yeah.
right?
And I think you're spot on. I think changing the environment, changing the people you talk to, changing the ideas that you get exposed to, I think that's one of the most important things. And really finding a place where you can thrive, because I do believe in, we were put here on earth as a seed, and we can't do anything about it. If I'm put here to be a sunflower, I'm going to grow up to be a sunflower. And no matter how hard I try, I'm never going to be able to turn into an oak.
Nope.
I have to grow up and be what I'm supposed to be. And if I happen to be in the wrong environment, it's your responsibility to shift that environment into where you're
Yep.
supposed to be. And
And
finding
that's
that community, finding those people who can help you.
Yeah.
And that's where all the suffering comes from, right? We're all trying to be the oak tree
Yeah.
because the society, parents, the wrong people, the wrong environment, everything that we've been exposed to up
Yeah.
to this point. Like, if you don't have the results that you want right now, something is not working. You cannot just keep being in the same environment, doing the same thing, and expect different results. It's insanity,
Yeah.
right? So that's where all the suffering, anxiety, depression, fear, even the fear of unknown, we talked about, everything comes from that.
Yeah.
Also, it's about like really finding the right soil, right environment, right community,
Yeah.
right people, right strategy, something that's really aligned with you, and accepting that this is your mission, right? Just, we tend to numb ourselves and distract ourselves, and because of the fear, oh, let me just go do this busy work so I don't have to look and accept and take on and step into that identity of
Yeah.
who I am here to be. But
Yeah.
like you said, we all have an internal purpose, like, and an outside purpose, so you need to embody, accept an initiation of like who you are here to be, so that you can show up in the world and be what you want to be in the world. So I feel like it has like two facets and it goes together.
Yeah. So, what are the tasks we should do? What do we do now? We had the habit stacking. Let's do that. What else? What do we do now?
So I would suggest that they take our authenticity assessment for awakened entrepreneurs. It will help you get that clarity. It helps you find out your values. It helps you find your strengths, those innate traits that we may view as negative. It really helps you to see how those can be positive, even if they're viewed as negative. And it helps you get a plan to kind of, it helps you find a starting point and start to get on the path to where you want to go. Starts to help you see what you're here for, your values and your strengths and weaknesses, so you can get who you are, get yourself positioned in the right direction to start on that path to greatness, to letting yourself shine.
I think that's a fantastic idea. So, everyone, I'll make sure to add the link in the description. And till next time, have a fantastic week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.